The City Council meeting of the City of Bonnie Lake for February 28th, 2023. As always, the first thing we do is salute the flag, so if everybody could stand. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we need to applaud the clerk's office for enlarging my font so I can read correctly. All right, Madam Clerk, could you call the roll, please?
Mayor McCullough.
I'm here.
Deputy Mayor Carter.
Here.
Councilmember Baldwin.
Here.
Councilmember Evans.
Here.
Councilmember Fullerton.
Here.
Councilmember McClymans.
Present.
Councilmember Swatman.
Present.
And Councilmember Watson.
Here.
Okay, there are no agenda modifications. So we will begin. We have a presentation from the Bonnie Lake Food Bank. I'll now hand the floor over to Mr. Jensen Isham.
Wait a second to make sure. Good to go? Okay. I appreciate everyone for having me today. I definitely feel underdressed. Sorry, I forgot the blazer and the tie.
Yeah.
But I appreciate you taking the time to meet. I wanted to talk a little bit about today, the work that we've been doing around the lockers, and see if we could move forward with the partnership with the city. So, let's see.
Is his microphone on?
Me speak closer. Can you hear me?
Oh, I just wasn't sure if it was getting picked up.
Pull it out if you want.
So a little bit about who we are. Obviously, we are the Bonnie Lake Food Bank, and we have a concept food bank called The Market on 410. Many of you have been by there. Really, it's a free grocery store located in East Pierce County. Kind of see a little bit of a description here. We believe that, we should give customers access to nutritious food, source that from local farms and food producers, and through doing that, true health equity is achieved. Really, the reason that we started The Market was to drive systemic change. From the time that I started with the Bonnie Lake Food Bank 3 years ago now as board president, to when Stacy came in and the many volunteers and supporters that have worked with us over time, it was never about perpetuating the current system. It was always about driving systemic change and doing something different. And I think in some ways we've achieved that, and I'm very proud of that. But with that, there's come this realization that maybe the market or buildings aren't necessarily the only way that you can drive systemic change. And that's kind of why we've moved towards this model with the locker system. And so that's what I want to talk with you about today. We call them Market Fresh, and the lockers look like this. We have our pilot at the farm on 410 now. You can go by there and check it out. These are lockers that I put quite a bit of time into evaluating against many other options. So if you're familiar with like Amazon lockers, they operate similar to that, but they can be heated, cooled, remote controlled. People can be self-service through those lockers, basically buy online, pick up at the lockers. So we believe that this is a very cost-effective way to kind of address the challenge of food insecurity. It gives our clients the power of choice to be able to select what time that they want to come by and be serviced. And so we're very excited to launch these, and they've been doing very, very well so far. So the pilot has basically passed with flying colors. We've had over 1,300 service through the lockers now with really no issues. And through that, we'd like to identify more locations in East Pierce by the end of 2023 that we can land these lockers. And I'm here today to propose that we put 2 of those here in Bonnie Lake. We'd like one at the Senior Center and one here at City Hall. This is part of a larger phase plan. Phase 1 is basically expand the lockers to 2 to 4 more sites, in addition to the one that we have at the Market on 410. We'd like to identify and create agreements with those sites. That's why I'm here. And plan for multi-service logistics to support distribution. So today, logistics are pretty simple. We have one locker and it's right next to the Market. So when we need to fill those lockers, we go next door and we fill them up. As we add more sites, we're realistic that we're going to have to create a system that kind of supports that. And so we want to start small, start local, and basically create more sites, here in East Pierce County to basically test out the pilot. Phase 2 is where it gets a lot more interesting. Phase 2 is really the goal of these lockers is that we want to be able to basically sell with local farmers and food producers. So they won't only be a place that you can go to seek service. They would also allow local farmers and food producers to sell through the lockers. So you could buy online and pick up at the locker. This has a few benefits. For one, it creates a social enterprise that can help to sustain those lockers over time. It removes the stigma of the lockers because you don't know why someone is going by. Are they seeking service? Or are they purchasing goods and services? And it lifts up the local farmers and food producers to be able to sell their goods here locally, much easier. And then phase 3, once we've kind of proven out, the initial sites, the logistics around it, creating the sell-through, sell-with infrastructure, it's really expanding it to more than 10 sites in total across Pierce County. So a few more of the details. There's no cost to install because these have already been paid for with grant funding, both through Pierce County and a federal grant that we recently received. The pilot has served more than 1,300 clients with no issue, so we're doing pretty good that way, we feel like. It's been cleared for operations from the health department, so these are actually very similar to like setting up a Coca-Cola machine, soda machine. They're only about $20 of power per month on average to use the lockers, so pretty low footprint that way once they're installed. The branding could be customized, so we'd like to partner in that to kind of figure out how you would like them branded for the sites that we're proposing. They're stormproof, extremely safe. They're made by a company called Bell Howell in North Carolina. We can provide all the information on that if you'd like, the data sheets, etc. Bell Howell can service the lockers many times remotely, but they also have techs in the local area to help with service and support if we need that for some reason. They're a great solution for seniors in the working class. We've already seen that with the pilot that we've established. Easy installation, so it takes about a day once they're landed to get them set up, and they have robust security features, so cameras, things like that, just to kind of make sure that they're kept safe. So really the next steps from here would be, if we want to move forward with this, we'd love to assess the sites and their readiness and kind of figure out a plan for how we would install the lockers at each of them, agree on that location and what supporting infrastructure might be needed, so power, concrete, those types of things. We're assuming we're probably going to be at the sites already. Develop and sign an MOU, prepare for launch, which will be marketing to kind of celebrate the launch of the lockers at these sites, and then ultimately better serve the community. So, not a huge fan of long PowerPoints. That's honestly all I've got. I'd just like to answer any questions you might have.
All right, let's open the floor to discussion. Councilmember Evans.
When you said you guys want to expand up to 10, what's your time frame on that?
By the end of 2024 is
Really? Okay.
is landed, yeah.
Right.
And we've already seen interest from, I think, 4 other municipalities here locally, and then also some business. So it looks like we may have more than 4 sites by the end of 2023. So it's positive that way.
What's the lead time on getting lockers?
It's about 6 to 8 weeks from my understanding.
Oh, okay.
Once they're ordered to have them landed.
Nice.
Supply chain's got a little bit better. When we first ordered them, it was a little bit longer, but it's improved.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Any further discussion? Councilmember Baldwin.
Hi there. I like the idea of allowing just people to be able to work with farmers and things like that as well. How would that look I'm trying to figure out how that would look as far as, are they ordering certain groceries? Are they, okay, and then would there be, because I guess my question then becomes if the lockers are, in these strategic locations, would that partnership then begin right away, or would that be where people are just coming first to get groceries from the market, but not having, citizens be able to buy from farmers too?
Correct. It would really be phase 2, which we anticipate is probably going to be early 2024 when we can actually sell with the farmers and food producers. We work with many of them today. So if you go by the market on 410, Macarios Meats and Dagodi Lettuce and, these producers we already work with, we already have partnerships there.
Mm-hmm.
But we anticipate it would be early 2024 before we would actually be able to use the lockers as a distribution point. All of the infrastructure to support that, as far as the online ordering system and kind of all of that, is already in place.
Okay.
But really for us, it's figuring out, once we go from one site to more than one, the logistics around that and making sure that we're very tight that way, because as soon as we flip the switch on ordering, we're bullish that we think that there's going to be a lot of interest around that, and we want to make sure that we can serve the need well.
Okay.
All right, Councilmember Fullerton.
Yeah, thank you for your time. I was wondering, because the market is a free grocery store, so if people are utilizing the lockers, is that food free for those people as well, or is this something that they would purchase online and pick up at the lockers? How does that work?
Initially free for customers that are, would come by the food bank or the market today. But the goal would be that it would be both options, right? So you can buy online and pick up the locker, or if you're seeking service, you'd be able to use them for that as well.
So their profile would basically say if they were going to be able to get that those items for free, or if they were going to pay because they didn't have a profile set up, correct? Okay, great.
There'd probably be different ordering systems you would work through, right? So there would be kind of an online, square, or a site you would go through to purchase versus we use a program called Oasis today that's kind of our CRM. That customers are able to go in and set up their appointments and things.
Great, thank you.
Okay, and Deputy Mayor Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Thank you, Jensen. I guess I love the lockers and the ideas of it and everything you guys have done. And I guess my question is in regards to when have you found that most people are going to the lockers to pick up their food or whatnot? Do you have like broken down by time as far as that goes?
Typically between 11 and 2. But I also think that has a little bit to do with that's kind of the time that the market is open today. And that we have, staff kind of servicing the lockers. So anticipate as we start to expand this a little bit, those times are going to be, a little bit more spread out. Part of the feedback that we've heard from, single moms that use the lockers and, seniors and people is, a lot of the customers that we have, they work multiple jobs. And so, for them, there's a lot of convenience in being able to come by anytime they want and not having to come in a specific window that is convenient for us, right? So really that's the goal here is convenience for them. And so that's a big part of figuring out the logistics is kind of making sure that, people can come by kind of at any time and seek service, if they need it.
Thank you.
All right, Councilmember Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And thank you, Justin, for your presentation. It's great tonight. I've been in the market, seen an operation, works so well. I like making it all set for the clients to come by. I think it's a great, safe program for people who feel they don't want to go to a food bank or a market. So they can go there and get the food easily that way and stuff. So make it simple. Having something in senior center over here will be great for us. We have a lot of seniors that don't drive themselves. So they're coming down for lunch at the senior center. They can pick up food, take home with them that way, which would be a big benefit for them too. So hopefully we can get those set up in the city pretty soon.
One thing I would point out is the lockers are quite modular. So you have kind of a control unit in the middle, and then you can start with just a bay of, 4 or 8 lockers and expand that, right? So, we believe that for like the senior sitter, that would be more of like a satellite site that may just have the control unit and maybe, 1 or 2 kind of bays. And then, for here, hopefully at City Hall, that would be kind of a larger installation. And those can kind of be scaled out, over time.
And Councilmember McClymans.
Yeah, so have you considered once you start doing the sell through, sell with program, have you considered guardrails to make sure you're not competing with local small businesses?
The intent would be that we would try and partner with local small businesses. So if there are ways, like we've even had some discussions to kind of say there's ways they can use that because ultimately these are intended to be a public good. To be able to, sell their goods through, we're all for that, right? So I think the door is open that way to partnership if there are businesses that maybe want to engage or partner with us to kind of do that, with the lockers.
Okay, I don't really, so you don't think there's going to be any danger in competition then?
I guess what would be an example?
Well, for example, you have an agreement with a local farm to provide, the produce here, and another farm comes and says, well, hey, we'd like to do that. But we, their agreement, you're like, no, that's too much for us, doesn't work. How do you adjudicate that is my question.
Today we don't really operate with any.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
No, that's not really a challenge for us right now. We have multiple producers, today, farmers that we work with, and some of them are competitive. But for us, source goods from all of them, and we put millions of dollars back in the local economy. So, it just really hasn't been an issue so far.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, I do have a question very quickly. During the beta phase of the pilot program, did you have keep data or statistics on any failures, like people failing to come pick up what they've ordered? And do you have a backup plan for that if that does indeed happen?
So believe it or not, from a technical perspective, there's been 0 failures in client pickups.
Okay.
The only failure we've had with the locker itself is one of the lights went out on them. And that's kind of an interesting story where one of the lights went out. Stacy noticed that, called into Bell Howe, and they remotely troubleshooted that and had it turned on by the next morning. So obviously they've only been in operation for about a year now, but so far, we've seen pretty good results that way. And the lockers are tracked to kind of say when someone comes to pick up and take service, was that locker emptied within a certain period of time, et cetera. Today, because I think we're operating in kind of a control environment, we've had a pretty good pickup rate. So I don't think that's been an issue, but I do think that's a good point to kind of say, as we expand to multiple sites and we start to figure out the logistics around that, that's one of the reasons we want to land lockers close to kind of home base, with the market, is to figure those things out, as we move into that phase where it's multiple sites and what the logistics looks like to support that.
All right. Well, thank you,
Mr. Mayor.
Oh,
another
yes,
question real quick.
Councilmember Johnson.
How are you handling with other locations throughout the area that already have food supply sources, such as Wilkerson? I think you're out there already. You got Prairie Ridge. Those people work real hard to service their community. And you start putting these lockers in areas that they're going to be losing. How are you handling that to work together with them?
It's a great question. Really, we look at this as this could be fully managed or co-managed, right? So in those situations where they already have a food bank or they already have people providing service, we've had some good discussions with them where, we just want to be a support for them, right? And so if they're already, there's an example Stacy gives of, a lady in one of these communities that's kind of worried, like she makes, warm food and she serves warm meals and like, are we going to compete? Nothing like that, right? We want to be able to provide assurances that when, there are times maybe she runs out of milk with the lockers, now that's not going to happen because we're able to, provide that supply chain and logistics to just really better support her, right? And so in those situations with communities that, have food banks, we'd love to partner with them, right? And kind of figure out more of a co-managed model where the lockers are a support versus, I think what I'm describing here, this is more fully managed, right? Where, this would be the Bonnie Lake Food Bank kind of taking on all the responsibility of these lockers and making sure that, we're running them kind of end to end. We also anticipate that, as this hopefully network grows, that some people may want to be able to help kind of manage the lockers with us, and we're open to that. So we definitely don't want to have an approach, and even to your question about, is there lock-in, right? Like that isn't the intent. We want to keep this open so that for the local farmers, local food producers, or people that are already serving their community, we just basically, take this service that we're providing and better enable them, right, to do what they do well.
Thank you.
All right. Any further questions? Well, thank you, Mr. Isham.
Thank you.
Yeah, it was a very, very nice presentation. Didn't want to say it the wrong way. I did appreciate your brevity, though. So.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jason.
Thank you.
Okay. Moving on, seeing that there's no public hearing, we'll go on to citizen commentary. This is your time to address the Council on City Business. You will have 5 minutes up at the dais. And when you do come forward, please state your name and address for the record, please.
Hello, my name is Jasmine Tran, and I'm representing the Bonnie Lake Library. I'm here to invite you to our April 15th event. It's our Remixed Your Bonnie Lake Library. It's happening from 11 to 2 on Saturday. We'll have a magical day. We'll have 2 magic shows at 11:30 and 1:30 with fun activities filled in between where you'll have an opportunity to see our fresh new space and meet new faces like our new children's librarian, Amanda. Light refreshments will be provided by the Friends of the Bonnie Lake Library. So I just wanted to invite you all, if you're free, on April 15th to see our magical library.
Well, thank you, Ms. Tran. Can your magician reproduce my lost library card? It's disappeared a long time ago.
I'm sure we could work something out.
All right. Anybody further for the order? Evening, Mr. Decker.
Mayor, Council, I'm Daniel Decker, past council member of 204 and 70th Street East, Bonnie Lake, Washington. On January 24, 2023, the following information was placed in the citizen comment section of the council minutes. Daniel Decker, 204 and 70th Street, Bonnie Lake, Washington, shared how he feels all city employees should take an oath and and how council members should go to training and be compensated for their time. In the above comment on January 24, 2023, the topic of my comment was left out, making my comment incoherent and without accuracy. And this is ongoing, so this is not the first time. It seems like every time I speak, the minutes seem to say I'm saying something else. What I did say in a nutshell, all city employees should take an oath to the Constitution. The mayor and council have taken an oath to the Constitution. They should have training on the Constitution along with city employees to learn the intent of the Constitution. That's basically what I spoke on January 24th, 2023. And as you notice, two entirely different subjects were spoken on. One in the minutes, which is totally incomprehensible and really not what I said. And what I just said is more accurate than not. And I am going to do a public records request. This is a public records request. I, Daniel A. Decker, per RCW 4256, do now request to view the following information. The name, title, city cell phone number issued to each staff to include landline numbers and pay range of all staff that works full-time for the city of Bonnie Lake, Washington. This request is to include all appointed staff. Thank you very much, council. I'm just very, very, very disgruntled about the way I've been treated by whoever is putting the minutes together and not saying in the minutes what I said. I don't care if they edit it, reduce it down to 50 words or 20 words or 10 words, but expect it to be what I said, not what they wanted to pretend it meant. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Decker. Okay. Do we have anybody else for the good of the order? Okay. Seeing nobody else, we have no correspondence. Next, we have committee reports. Can we have the Finance Committee, please?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The Finance Committee did not meet. The next meeting will be March 14th at 5 p.m. upstairs.
All right. Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Community Development Committee, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Community Development did meet on February 21st, 5 p.m. upstairs. We're always available for any kind of public to attend there. I had a couple of items. Resolution 3128, which is a professional services agreement for parametrics. Of course, they're providing us some SCADA support for different lift station additions and the terminal unit, the main terminal for sewer and water, and we needed some clarification on some budgetary numbers there, so we were held in that in committee to clarify that, to make sure that it kind of reads in English and is real straightforward. We also had the resolution that you have before you tonight, which is the resolution 3130, which is the open space parks contract amendment. And there was some discussion at committee level about that particular issue, and we can go over that when we have it on our open agenda here shortly. Also, the ordinance to amend Bonnie Lake Chapter 1513 for stormwater management for our MPDES permit, because we're falling under some, of course, Phase 2 requirements for those permitting, and there's a lot of, committee pushback on what those requirements and how they're executed within the city. We're worried about, excessive regulations for various parties and trying to figure that out. We basically ran out of time, so we had to keep that one in committee, and we approved our minutes, and then we ran downstairs.
Just in time, if I remember right. Thank you, Councilmember Swatman. Public Safety Committee, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next public safety meeting will be on Tuesday, March 14th at 3:30 upstairs on the second floor.
All righty. Thank you, Councilmember Evans. Don't see any other reports. Now we will have the consent agenda. Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
Second.
All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Very good. The consent agenda has been adopted, and we do have a community development issue. Item A, Madam Clerk.
This is AB 2334, Resolution 3130. The council motion would be to authorize the mayor to sign a contract amendment number 1 with Conservation Techniques related to the park, trails, and open space plan.
So moved.
Second.
Do we have any discussion on the matter? Councilmember McClymans.
Yeah, so, when I was looking at this is the result of not getting grant money, right? And so then we have to kind of figure out how to get the work done anyway. But I was kind of looking at it as well as, I asked the question of, can we take the public, the $13,000, I think that's in there for public engagement, and can we bookmark that or earmark that for putting an initiative or some sort of something on the ballot that would help us get input from the public during an election regarding parks. And the discussion, has pointed out that it would probably be better to get through this part of the planning and to have a more detailed plan. And then we could go out for an advisory vote with some options to say option A, option 1. And, because, I really do, for parks and the position we're in to parks, somebody's going to get taxed. And I really want to ask the general public who they want to be taxed. And I think it will cost us money. I understand that. But this is an example where we are spending that money for public engagement. And, in a general election, let's say a presidential general election, I'm going to get somewhere on the order of 14,000 opinions, right? So I think the money is well spent, right, that way, because I don't think you're going to get 14,000 opinions for the $13,000.
Thank you, Councilmember McClymans. Any further discussion on the matter? Councilmember Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I understand completely what you're talking about, but I think we should first go out to the public with a questionnaire and ask them to break it down to a smaller group. You want this, this, and this. As we talked about CDC, just send out a ballot. Do you want us to tax you for more of something? They're going to probably say no, because that's a waste of money. But if we have an idea of what they're looking for, because I thought I do, I could be wrong. And in our CDC, we'll have different ideas what the public is looking for. So if we're getting better feedback, and I think we'll know better which way we're going than just taking dice and throwing it out and say, okay, let's see if they vote for this or say no to it. And as we talked about, since I've been in council for 10 years, we're not getting anywhere with all this. It'd be nice for us to make some progress and get it narrowed down to get our parks going forward.
Okay. Councilmember Baldwin.
I did have a question on the section that talked about the print version of the survey would be mailed to a random sample of 2,500 households. And it was saying that equates to 30%, but I've expressed my thoughts on print versions of surveys and things like that coming into the mail and how often I miss those. And so I'm just wondering, what is the estimated amount of ones that would actually come back out of that 30%? So I don't know that if we mailed out 2,500 surveys that we would get 2,500 back. So
no.
I'm trying to figure out this percentage is going to be smaller than 30%. So what would that percentage be?
If I could, we have Jason Sullivan with us tonight, but I would venture a guess that we probably don't have a really good estimate, but I'll let him weigh in. He's been talking to our team about that. So,
all right, Mr. Sullivan.
Yeah, I would agree. It's always hard to put a pin on exactly how many we're going to get back. That's why we're also going to be doing this through our email list and also through other means on the website to try to attack it in 3 ways to address that issue. So mailing it to a random sample of 2,500 households, putting it out on our email server, and then also putting it, because we have an email list of about 200 to 300 individuals that have signed up, plus putting it online and trying to drive people that way to it to hopefully get to about 2,500. But we're trying to attack it 3 ways, just as you said, it's hard to diagnose exactly how many we're going to get back.
When you say put it online, Mr. Sullivan, where would it be put online?
We're going to have links on the city's website on the Parks Plan webpage, and then I think we're developing a QR code with it too, so that you'd be able to do it with a QR code as long as we have that out. So we'll have the QR code out at different events, so that people, say at Bonnie Lake Days or the Tunes at Taps, can scan the QR code and do it right there on their phone. So trying to, I guess, take a wide approach and not mailing it to every address, because we know we're not going to get every address back, but we at least want to attempt this as a way of just trying to cover all of the bases when trying to get the survey out to as many people in this community as possible.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Any further questions? Councilmember Swatman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. No, yeah, I have been around a little while, so I've seen a lot of this type of activities in the previous years. And as Councilmember Watson mentioned, council's never been able to really coalesce and come to some kind of a conclusion or be able to drive anything forward. So the effort is largely just the Parks Plan itself needs to be done so that it's updated and it allows us to continue to sign up for grants and options that we definitely need in the future. But I just, think that this is a component of the larger Parks Plan that it's not going to provide me really any value. When I was frankly unimpressed when the folks are talking about different parks and the way they evaluated some of the parks they did, it was like, there was some issues with that. And even some of our newer council members asked them about the homeownership association parks, and there was just like a gigantic blank spot there. And I'm like, yeah, we've been doing a lot of work with those homeownerships over the years. So, there's very little value in this to me. So I'm going to be like a no on this particular aspect of it. I think it could be like, it's a scope type of a thing. It's not going to do anything for me. I just, those that have not learned from history are doomed to repeat it. And so it's like round and round we go, but that's the way it is. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Councilmember Swatman, and I do appreciate your British way of understatement by saying you've been around for a while. Any further discussion? Deputy Mayor Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This will bring up, I think, the question that Councilmember Kleinman's typically asks is, if we don't pass this tonight, what happens?
Mr. Sullivan has his hand up. Would that be in response to Deputy Mayor Carter's question?
Yes.
Okay, good.
So none of these items are mandatory. However, I will say that last week, we as a staff all attended a grant workshop put on by MSRC about how to make grants more competitive. And this type of public engagement was specifically kind of called out as things that make grant applications for both state and federal dollars more appealing. One of the big measures that they're looking at is how you engage the public, how you gathered that data. So while it's not a mandatory thing, you don't have to do it. However, in our opinion, it's something that would make us more competitive when we're going after funding sources for items in the park plan, because we'll be able to say we did the survey and that there was public support behind that survey and the data behind it. So while not mandatory, highly encouraged for the granting agency and also for the data that we would collect.
Okay, Councilmember Swatman.
Yeah, and thank you very much, Mr. Sullivan. You're always very accurate and timely with these comments there. But it's my impression that we applied for a grant to do this portion of the work, and that's why we're questioning this, right? So if it's so important for our granting agencies, they recognize the value in this, why weren't we given a grant in the first place to do this?
The grant application, there was $2 million or $5 million available, and they had requests for, I want to say, close way over that. And because there was communities that had never gotten an RCO grant, they were prioritized over other cities. And so they kind of got it. There were some smaller jurisdictions that had never got RCO grants, and they were prioritized over larger jurisdictions. And that was a grant for preparing plans, not a grant for construction. So the evaluation criteria, I think, was a little bit different for this grant than the grant for constructions. And as I said, they intentionally prioritized smaller jurisdictions that had not received an RCO grant. And the fact that we had just got an RCO grant for the ball field kind of, I think, knocked us down the list a little bit because we just got that $300,000 grant for the ball field. So I think we just had some things working in our favor. There was another number of cities. However, there is a push in the legislature right now to try to add all the money into the grant program to fund all these grants, but who knows what's going to happen with the legislature. So we really can't wait for that. So that's why I don't think we scored high enough. I think it was those two factors.
And for clarification, Mr. Sullivan, you were saying that you were trying for these grants. Would that be at the state level, the county level, or the federal level?
These were state grants through RCO, which is the Recreation and Conservation Office that does parks grants. And they had released a state-funded grant this year for planning efforts. And we applied one to help try to cover some of these costs. So it was a state-level grant.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Deputy Mayor Carter.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I guess my next question would be, how long would it be before we could reapply for a grant like this? And do we think at that point we'd have a shot at getting it, I guess, as well?
It would be after our plan is complete. So it would be kind of we would score even lower because we would have an approved park plan at that point. If that makes sense, because our parks plan is supposed to be adopted by the end of the year. So even if there's another round next year, it would be after our adopted parks plan. So it would be really hard to make an argument that this is critical to adopting our parks plan.
But in your opinion, the data that we would get from the surveys would have us score higher?
Well, I think it's two things. One, we would have, we would have data on what the public is looking at generally. And I would agree that the results are only going to be as good as we can get people to answer the survey. So that's going to be on us to deliver. I can't guarantee because I can't force people to take the survey.
Sure you can. You're a big guy.
But I think the second one was when we attended that grant workshop, one of the things that the presenters talked about was that the granting agencies are really looking at how you engage the public, how you gathered the data, and that kind of goes into those scores. And since this was a grant workshop in general, they didn't talk about specific grants, but we are seeing that as a trend that when we're applying for these grants, they want to know how we engage the public, how we gathered the data, and how we arrived at our conclusions. And I think that this provides some additional support for those grant applications. Will it push us over the top? I don't know. I don't have a crystal ball that good.
Well, those are very salient points. Thank you, Mr. Sullivan. Do we have any further? Oh, Councilmember Watson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. As you know, last week we attended the student forum. I talked to all the high school students about what they want to see in Bonnie Lake.
I enjoyed that very much.
Yeah, it was very good. And we heard from most all about someplace for them to go after school. A ball field, a playground, a youth center, something for them. I've heard that for numerous years on the council, doing something for them, more at Allen York Park, Midtown Park, doing something. I understand Mr. Swatman's viewpoint in this, but we need to get something solid to go on, make our decision to go forward with this, be shown that we are making a change in Bonnie Lake, giving them more things to go to, more things to do on the weekends and after school. You've got those into Holly. You've got a few of our parks here. You've got a student location in Buckley. We have them all around us, but nothing in Bonnie Lake. So we need to make this a core area, as I've talked before, for people to come to for after school, for things to do. And that's the biggest challenge we have. So many parents work from 9 to 5 or whatever, 8 to 5, and the kids are going someplace. And it'd be nice to have some area for them to go to enjoy themselves, not just hang out.
All right. Thank you, Councilmember Watson. Councilmember Baldwin.
I was curious in regards to these areas that you're referring to where, kids can hang out that are outside of Bonnie Lake. Are those government establishments or are they private establishments?
Buckley's government out there they go to, but Holly is all private out there. You've got one also the kids go to in Orning, and it's I don't know.
Government as well.
I don't. It's a recovery center, but it's also a student they go to, and they're a safe place for them to go to. Part of the rest of the building down there, And then you've got the YMCA in Sumner, and they talked about all those things. Those things all came up to them. So they have to try and get there somehow. And obviously you don't have a bus for them to go there, so the people near that don't have parents around are stuck just hanging out.
But to answer your question fully, the kids were also asking for a bowling alley and laser tag, which would not be government.
I mean, that's not your call to make.
Nice. No, it could be. We're putting up a bowling alley.
Exactly.
Maybe that could go in the industrial area.
All right, any further discussion on the matter before we take it to a vote? Okay, looks like we're done with discussion. All in favor of Resolution 3130, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Nay.
How many nays did we have? 2 nays, five ayes, so 5-2. The resolution has been adopted. So there is no executive or closed session. Seeing no more business, we are adjourned. Thank you very much, everybody.
But